Jupiter, I'm al-Mushtari. That means Jupiter in Arabic. I'm an animation student and a HEMA fencer. Last video was very fun, they're always fun, but today is something I'm sort of more passionate about. I didn't grow up watching Octonauts, but I love the concept of Robin Hood. I always have. And I've always had this... No, I haven't. I've had this idea for a couple years. Have any of you guys seen the modern Carmen Sandiego show, where Carmen is an awesome gentlewoman thief who steals things back from a company that steals? Yeah, I wanted to make a modern Robin Hood, and not one that's like set in the olden days or is live action, but an animated She-Ra or Carmen Sandiego-like show. I love gentleman thief tropes, man. Maybe this would even be like a musical show, or okay, yeah, just checking. Maybe this would even be like a musical show, or just a musical. Songs like Ready As I'll Ever Be would definitely show up. Or like, you know, songs like them. I wanted to make the old kind of quirky main character. Often Robin Hood is portrayed as a super awesome or super cool or flawless guy, but my Robin is not. He's incredibly talented, but he's a disaster. Also, editing me here, I'm reading the Robin Hood ballads, and half of them start with Robin Hood challenged a guy to a fight because he wanted to see if he could win. A lot of problems in these stories start because the men advised Robin Hood to take some bodyguards with him, but he refused. I'm getting even deeper into it, and I'm gonna show some instances of old Robin Hood getting himself into meaningless trouble. A peddler meets Robin Hood and Little John asks what he has in his pack. Little John demands half of it. They fight. The peddler wins. Robin laughs and says he has a man who could defeat him. They fight, and the peddler wins again. This one's funny too. Robin remarks on the sorrowful knight's threadbare clothing. Robin Hood remarks on the sorrowful knight's threadbare clothing and inquires about his situation. The sorrowful knight responds that his ancestors have been knights for 100 years, but now he is disgraced because his son and heir killed the Knight of Lancaster. To redeem him, the sorrowful knight borrowed 400 pounds from a rich abbot of St. Mary's, using his lands as collateral. The loan is now due, but he only has 10 shillings, so his lands will be seized by the abbot. Robin asks if he has any friends. The knight replies that he had plenty of friends when he was rich, but none now that he's poor. L. Knight. And this one. Robin Hood one day sees a cheerful young man dressed in red, singing and playing in the greenwood. It is Alan a Dale. The next day, he sees him again, dejected. He sends 2 of his merry men, Little John and Much the Miller's son, to apprehend him. Why are you apprehending him? There's also this one. Separated from Robin Hood, Maid Marion dresses as a page and ranged the wood to find Robin Hood, who was himself disguised, so that the two began to fight when they met. Now he's like fighting fighting his own girlfriend. And this one. On his way to Nottingham, Robin meets a jolly beggar wearing a patched coat with many bags on his person, which especially attract Robin's attention. The beggar begs, but Robin refuses to offer him charity because, he explains, he is Robin Hood the outlaw and has no money himself. Robin offers to fight him. Why is he fighting the beggar? Lastly, while strolling through the forest one day, Robin Hood encounters a shepherd lying on the ground and demands to know what he has in his bottle and bag. When the shepherd refuses, Robin says he will coerce him with his sword if he does not tell him. Robin lays 20 pounds on a fight, and the shepherd agrees to bet his bottle and bag against it since he has no money. They fight hard from 10 to 4 o'clock. You hear that? They fought from 10 to 4 o'clock. A 6-hour fight. In fact, this whole 6-hour fight isn't the only time this has happened to Robin Hood. Another ballad says they fought from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. As a person who does HEMA fencing, our spars last at most 10 minutes, and that's like a really long spar.
Okay.
So I can't imagine fighting for 6 hours. Anyway, back to my Robin. He's got the best aim in England and is great of getting out of sticky situations, but he's so dedicated to bringing down Prince John that he puts himself in too much danger. He basically refuses to die until he gets the job done. He's usually all smiley and all jokes and slightly unhinged, but he's dead serious about his work. He's charming, but kind of as a skill. He's a bit like antisocial, and though he's kind, he sometimes uses people to get closer to his goal. It's nothing personal. He has a hard time making connections. I don't know if I would actually label him as having ASPD because I'm afraid I'd portray that incorrectly, but he's someone who didn't have the greatest childhood emotion-wise, and so he has a very hard time with it as an adult. No one knows where Robin came from. As a teenager, he was found by John Little, or Little John, who ran a small gang called the Merry Men, and Robin basically built the Merry Men up to a huge force in Britain. Reminder, everyone here is British. This show is entirely made of British people. People on Tumblr asked me, does Robin Hood have love interests? Sort of, but he's so focused on his work that it's always them falling first and him falling never. He doesn't want any distractions. So why is Robin so obsessed and angry about Prince John? And where does he get all his resources from? I will tell you later. Also, Robin is hard of hearing and wears behind-the-ear hearing aids. At first, I didn't draw these correctly, so I amended them off-screen. Robin wasn't born with hearing loss. He lost most of his hearing as a teenager, and sort of still has been getting used to it. He's forgotten certain sounds. He's learned British Sign Language but isn't fluent, and he hates being in crowds for too long because the hearing aids amplify the background noise. His favorite noise is birds, specifically robin calls, which is why he gave himself that name. I'm trying to write him correctly because I don't see many characters in the deaf community, especially not deaf main characters. Also, he doesn't sort of pass as a hearing person. His hearing aids definitely do not quote-unquote fix his ears. I've been doing research and taking inspiration from the deaf YouTuber Jessica Kellgren-Fozard. I do have Robin's backstory and why he is the way that he is, but you'll see later. For a voice, I think Robin would have the same kind of voice as Disney's Robin Hood, very charming English guy.
Rob? That's a naughty word. We never rob. We just sort of borrow a bit from those who can afford it.
Then there is Robin's right-hand man, John Little, or Little John. I forgot to record his screen drawing. He started off in a poor town in England and made it all the way here. He found Robin when Robin was a teenager and basically took him in like a big brother or even a father. Emphasis on big because Little John is huge. Even in the original story, he was said to be like a 7-foot giant guy. He's a great human being. Unlike in the original Ballad of Robin Hood where Little John is always getting into fights. This Little John is considerably more level-headed. He's basically Robin's conscience and holds Robin back, or tries to, from terrible and reckless decisions. He's also learning British Sign Language for Robin, and those two are best friends. Sometimes he tries interpreting for Robin. Their relationship is kinda like Megamind and Minion. He founded the Merry Men, who aren't literally all men, of course. Men is used here as human. The Merry Men were a tiny little gang in a poor town in England, but Robin Hood was the guy who, due to his risk-taking nature, propelled it into basically a huge mob, or a kind gang, a gang who only does good for people. All the Merry Men wear a feather somewhere on their outfit because of Robin. When I say it's a huge gang, I mean it's still underground. No one really knows how to get into it, but people know of it, or at least it's a conspiracy. In some ballads, Robin Hood asks Little John if he wants to be his boss again, but Little John responds that he wants Robin to stay as his boss. Anyway, Little John, I imagine, has the same voice as Vander from Arcane and a pretty similar personality.
When people look up to you, you don't get to be selfish.
Then there's Maid Marion, or in my story, she's Dr. Marion May, just so it sounds similar. She's one of Robin's love interests. Though she seems like a stuck-up, prim and proper doctor, she's actually kind of a thrill seeker secretly. Not in the Robin Hood way of committing crimes, but in extreme sport. She's literally the cave diver meme. Somehow, she feels like she knows Robin, even though she's never met him. He always comes to her for medical treatment, even though she tells him to go to A&E. A&E is the British version of, I can't remember what they call it in America, I think it's the emergency room. I am actually only familiar with British systems, despite my accent. Robin doesn't want to go to the hospital because, of course, they'll eventually have to turn him into the police because he is one of Britain's most wanted. She's very determined, down-to-earth, and responsible. Very unlike Robin. She's charmed by him, but is also very, very annoyed. She has a leaf necklace given to her by a childhood friend from the rich Locksley family. Also, if you're wondering, why does she have a big forehead? She's meant to. I didn't just give her a 5-head by accident. She's also King Richard's niece, by way of her aunt's marriage. So she's met the king and all that, and is kinda pampered. I think she would be voiced by Kate Winslet as Rita from Flushed Away.
How do I know this ain't just a load of old rubbish?
I did do this little drawing of Robin Hood and Dr. Marion as a cat and a fox, and some other animals too. There are many members of the Merry Men. Not that Dr. Marion is a part of them, she's just kind of on their side. Of course, she probably does leave being a doctor behind to become one of them later on in the story. Anyway, most of the Merry Men are nameless members who help out across the country. Namely, there is, as he's named in the original Robin Hood ballads, Alan Adale. I don't like that name. I'm gonna turn him into a girl, because you know, the original Merry Men didn't really have many girls. So instead of Alan Adale, she could be Alia Debus or something. Or just Alia. In the original tales, he's a bard alongside a part of the Merry Men, so same here. Alia is well versed in many instruments. She'll usually sign up to be a musician at certain events so that she can spy on Robin's enemies. She'd be quite bitter and flamboyant, a big Robin hater. She did not like it when teenage Robin joined the Merry Men all those years ago.
Are you new here?
Yeah. Basically, she's got big mean girl energy. Also, there is Will Scarlet, also a part of the original Robin Hood tales. In those, he helps Robin with capturing a knight and then jokes about the knight's clothing. And he's seen wearing fine clothing, so in my version, he is a big fashion guy. Apparently, Robin gave him the name Will Scarlet, which is weird, but okay, we'll take it. And in my story, I've decided to make him kind of the tailor of Robin's local Merry Men. Like I said, the Merry Men are spread all across the UK, so he can't make everybody suits. Also, look at how many names this guy originally had. Will Scarlet, also Scarlet, Scarlock, Scadlock, Scathelock, Scathelock, and Shacklock. He sounds like an animatronic from the Mimic. Next is our first villain, usually named the Sheriff of Nottingham, but here his name is Commissioner Nottingham. That's his surname. I'm not actually sure of his first name as of yet, probably something totally normal like Simon or Samuel or whatever. He is the UK Police Commissioner, so he is super in charge. He's focused on everything, but he's also personally invested in the Robin Hood case. He's usually dressed in his actual police commissioner outfit, see this guy, but that was kinda boring to look at for a character, so I gave him this evil rich guy minimalist gray getup. He is mad as anything about Robin Hood. We'll do anything to arrest him. I think he'd be voiced by Simon McBurney as Oliver Cromwell in Wolfwalkers.
Because tonight, we put an end to this.
Our second villain is one of the aforementioned strange relationships Robin Hood has. The assassin from old Robin Hood ballads, Guy Gisborne. In the original tales, Guy Gisborne is an assassin wearing horse skins sent after Robin, who Robin manages to kill. He's also, after Maid Marian's affections, but she doesn't return them. That's a little boring. So I flipped it on its head. In my story, Guy Gisborne is a small and kind dude, but he has a resting bored face. He's adorable and sweet, but how on earth did he get a job as an assassin? Well, he's very good, and he's not always dressed in this armed forces outfit. Usually he's dressed normally. He is sent to kill Robin Hood, and that is this interaction. Robin just asks, "Do you cope well with failure?" And Guy is all flustered about that because his targets have never just told him, "No, you're not gonna kill me." They run into each other every so often, and Guy usually secretly ends up letting Robin go for no reason. He badly wants to be friends with Robin. This is the assassin we incorporated into our found family. Also, cause of him wearing a horse's skin in the original tale, I'm gonna flip that and make him a horse lover. I think he'd be voiced by Michael Ward as Jamie from Top Boy.
Nothing bad's ever gonna happen to you while I'm around. I never let you down before, have I?
Then, this villain is a connection to Robin's past and another worker of the Secret Service, Lucy Loxley. She's from the very rich, billionaire Loxley family. Lucy is not like Guy Gisborne. She is hell-bent on killing Robin. She, too, is a woman dedicated to her job. She was the little sister of James or Jamie Loxley before he died. Her big brother was always favored over her, so now she's trying to show her parents that she's worth her salt by killing the famous Robin Hood. She's friends with Dr. Marion because Marion and her big brother James were childhood friends, so she can relate over their grief. But they have a good relationship between each other, excluding James's existence. Hello? Okay. I imagine she has the voice of Melanie King from the Magnus Archives.
Wipe that look off your face. Like you're not the reason all of this is happening.
Earlier, I said the show would be a musical, and the Ready as I'll Ever Be song definitely belongs to Lucy. The last main villain is Prince John. Obviously, this is set in modern day, and the real Prince John / King John lived in the 1100s, but this is fiction and in Robin Hood, and the main villain of Robin Hood is Prince John. I mean, no actual disrespect to actual current monarchs. In my story, Prince John poisoned the good King Richard into a coma and usurped his throne. King Richard was a kind dude, but this guy is not. He's mildly bothered by Robin Hood and would like to see him caught. He'd be voiced by Anton Ego's voice, Peter Toole. Well, except rest in peace.
Pardon me for interrupting your premature celebration.
However, there's a twist. You all know the twist. Robin Hood is actually James Locksley.
Oh my God.
Lucy Locksley's brother. Yeah, it's kind of obvious, but I think it's fun. So the Locksley family, very rich, like I said. Robin grew up with them. He had everything he wanted, financially and materially, but had loads of expectations put on him and not much parental love. That's where his lack of connection to people comes from, and his arrogance and recklessness. He's a rich kid, or he was, so he never really learned to care for people. His needs came first. But how did a rich teenager in London end up being found in a poor English town with hearing loss? Well, an attack. The Locksleys are rich, but they didn't get that way honestly. They're bad people, at least the parents of the family are. The kids didn't do a thing, of course. Still, an attack happened at one of their events in a different part of England, an explosion. James, or Robin, came away very, very hurt, but he made it out, running away by himself. He was then found by Little John, who decided to take him in. Robin didn't want to admit who he was, and all of his distinctive Locksley platinum blonde hair had burned off, so he kinda just continued the way he was. Eventually, he gave himself the name Robin. Now, Robin's the leader of the Merry Men. And yeah, that means Robin is actually a blonde who voluntarily dyes his hair ginger. I don't know which is worse. I'm kidding. The story probably begins with the announcement of King Richard falling into a coma and Prince John stepping into temporary power. This would have Robin extremely angry and starting the main part of his warpath, basically. In like season 3 or something, Robin would eventually cross a hard line that got him extremely hurt, and also Robin would finally develop feelings for one of his love interests, or both, or whatever. I'll probably be posting on TikTok about this and definitely on Tumblr, so go follow those if you'd like to see.
Okay, any questions before I go on from here?
But yeah, that is another rewrite, and maybe one of my favorites alongside the Rise of the Guardians vid. If you like this video, then I am making 4 statues of you. I know I have another outro, but I can't really remember it. Oh, wait, yeah, my outro, join the orbit. I'm Jupiter. Hell yeah. Goodbye, good night.